Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. Today I have with me beautiful sister, Taylor Eaton, who is a money mindset and human design expert in addition to many other things. But what she started out with was she learned about human design, and that helped her find her jam to figure out how to work from her intuitive self into now what she's expanded into. And so I am like improvising right now. But I'm really grateful that you started the journey with human design, because I think that's a fascinating way to go to. So tell me a little bit about that, and then we can expand into what you're currently offering, which I think is magical.
Yes. So I started out when I started my business about 6 years ago. I started out doing a couple different things, pivoting very quickly over the course of a year and kind of trying to find what I was doing within like the coaching world, within the mindset world, because those were things I was so passionate about. And then I stumbled just by accident on human design. And at that point in my business, I was struggling to even bring in like $2,000 a month in my business and was really grappling with that, even though I'd been doing my own money mindset work and seeing results for years. But I just couldn't quite figure it out with the business aspect. I couldn't nail down what was missing. And as soon as I learned my human design, it was like this giant permission slip. And for those of you who know human design, I'm a projector in human design. And what that means is just that I'm not meant to work like a lot of other people are designed to work, energetically speaking, meaning I don't have as much energy to pour into, getting 8 hours of work done every single day. And when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a huge relief because it explains why I'm always so tired, why I'm so burnt out, why no matter how organized I am, I can't work, 8 hours like I think I should in my business and like the way I was supposed to at my day job, which was exhausting. And
Right.
it was such a relief. And so I started playing with my design and playing with how do I go about running my business and making money in a way that honors the way I'm designed, in a way that feels good to me and honors my unique gifts. And once I started really getting the hang of playing with my design and business, it completely shifted things. Within 6 weeks, I went from barely making $2,000 a month to making over $20,000 a month. Like it was this
Oh,
crazy quantum leap. And there were a lot of mindset shifts involved in that, a lot of healing work involved. But the
yeah.
big thing I saw was like I completely shifted the way I worked, the way I viewed my own gifts, the sense of depth of value I carried within myself and value for the things that came easily to me. And it was like I came home to myself, and human design was a huge part of that. And so yeah, so that was how I started with human design. And once I saw that working for myself for a while, I was like, all right, I need to share this with other people. Like, my clients need to know this. I was working with like mindset and kind of business coaching and things like that after a while. And I was like, all right, I can't, it's like I have a secret, it's like I can't in good conscience coach these people. And I also wanted to know my clients' human design. And I wanted to know because I was like, let me coach you in a way that works for you. Let's build your business in a way that works for you. And so as I started doing that, that was when my business just climbed and climbed, and I started scaling to multiple six figures. And I was doing it in a way that felt so fulfilling, so just validating. So, like it felt like I was kind of doing something bigger than me and really changing lives and making a difference. And that was so valuable. And then several years in my business, so about 3 years ago, I gave birth to my daughter. And going through that pregnancy and postpartum, there was some trauma there. There was some unexpected twists and turns in the pregnancy journey for me. And once she was born postpartum, I was like, I am a different person now. And it was like I definitely went through like a spiritual rebirth, a kind of transformation. And it left me in a void state for a while of knowing that I still loved human design and applying it to money and business, but I felt like I was being called to more.
Mm.
And that was when I started to kind of unniche myself, I'll say, and expand beyond just human design and money and really look at more spirituality and money in that intersection of it. And so uh, while my daughter had been born, I had been creating an oracle deck called the Wealthy Woman Oracle deck. And it had nothing to do with human design. And at the time, I just intuitively knew I needed to do it, but I didn't know why. And I didn't realize that would be the thing that kind of led me through this void state, because as I was in this void state, my designer was like, "Hey, actually turning my design house into a traditional publishing house. We've partnered with these huge distributors. Your work has inspired me to do this with the deck. Do you want to be traditionally published through us and be in Barnes and Nobles because they love your deck, like this huge publisher we're partnering
Amazing.
with? Yeah, and I was like, oh, sure. And this was when I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next
Mhm.
after my giving birth. And so then I kind of just kept following the breadcrumbs and still applying the things I knew about human design of like, okay, well, let's do that because it feels correct per my
Mhm.
human design, but also how can I then use that to inform what I'm doing next in a way that feels good to me? And I just kept kind of following my soul's guidance and what felt right to me to now find myself in a position where I have this Oracle deck. I have an accompanying really beautiful guided journal that's out with it. We have two more titles coming out this year with another deck and journal around money and spirituality. I've started doing readings on YouTube about a year ago with my deck, and it's just exploded. And I've gone from like 1,000 subscribers to 12,000 in like 8 or 9 months. Like everything just has fallen into place so beautifully. And it's the more and more I've deepened into listening to what's felt right to me and accepting it and not fighting against the way I am, but embracing it, that everything has unfolded. So that's
I
been the
love that
journey.
you're speaking to that because I have this recent journey where the place I was living in got sold, no problem. I was gifted some funds and I was looking at apartments and I heard, why are you lowering your frequency?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? What am I like? That's what you do is you get an apartment. And they're like, no, go on to this website, Trusted House Sitters.
Mm,
Okay, so I've been traveling around Oregon for the past 3 weeks and will for the next 2 months, literally just surrendering
yeah.
and shining my light and just being present with whatever needs to come through. And so one of the expansions I've had is I've enrolled in school again, which I not expecting to do is Quantum University, and I'll be a doctor of holistic health when I'm done
Wow.
for animals.
Oh, that's amazing.
And never, I'm like, I'm good. I have a PhD in history. I don't need any more schooling. I played that program out. But this isn't about the program now. It's about the learning and expanding the offerings. And it's not something my small self is comfortable with.
Hmm.
And yet I'm surrendering to that because I know my small self isn't helpful right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I so often tell people in my audience, in my life, I just say I've gotten so good at surrendering, especially surrendering to being uncomfortable, right? Like surrendering to the discomfort is something that I feel like I've gotten so good at, especially in my business and especially in even when we talk about like spirituality and money, something that I've noticed that I tell people quite a bit is it's like you can't always know how it's going to work out and what's going to be the thing that leads you to the money, but if you are like you almost said, like you're on the right energetic frequency of the next level of wealth you desire, then you don't need to know the how. You just have to keep listening to, okay, what's the next aligned action? What's the next thing that feels right? What's the next thing that feels right? And sometimes those next aligned things feel really uncomfortable. But I've often found what even feels more uncomfortable to most people is not knowing how it's going to happen, like not having almost a plan. And it's not to say you can't strategize and you can't try plan things out, but it's like when you're so much just looser and open, I always tell people it's like that's when you stop micromanaging the universe. And that was the biggest thing. Cause I used to be like a type A control freak. Like I need to have a 5-year plan. I need to have every single thing, like I need to know exactly what comes next, like 2 months in advance. And now I'm just so open because I've seen so many things. Like there's no way I could have predicted that my deck would have inspired my artist to start her own publishing house that would have then led me to be known on a first name basis by the owners of these huge publishing houses and just like getting my work out there. It's like there's
Right,
no way I could have predicted that,
right.
but I was open and I just kept going, I'm just gonna do the next only thing until something else happens, right? And just keep going and going. And so it's awesome that that's the journey you're on because I feel like when you're in this state, you're like, I don't know exactly where I'm going. I'm definitely uncomfortable, but I feel like that's how you know something big is coming, right? Like it's all
Oh, yeah.
compounding.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know, because like my small self again is like, okay, well, I'm booked out to December 1st.
Hmm. Yep.
What's
You're good.
next? What's next, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the program is like, what's next?
Yeah.
And I keep hearing you'll know when you know.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I'm just surrendering. He's like right in between my legs, like I'm house sitting with a dog who's got a ball in his mouth and he's just trying to get my attention. winning. But like it's that state of like what I'm feeling is untethered. And one of the things that's coming up for me is I have 2 storage units.
Mm,
I don't want anything in them
mhm.
because I'm feeling that disconnected from needing to have things at this point,
Yeah.
which is really fascinating because I'm a homebody.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when I went through now that you say that, it's like I'm thinking about when I was in that void state postpartum and I was like trying to figure out like who have I become? Because I realized that the kind of foundations of who I thought I was, like my self-concept, had almost been completely shattered through everything I'd gone through with my pregnancy and postpartum experience. And it just shattered how I thought
Hmm.
things worked for me, right, in the
Ah,
world. And I had to come back and kind of reforge who I wanted to be on a more stable basis and not kind of working off of the defaults of the previous like 30 years of my life.
right.
And I found it's interesting that you say that because my husband and I just again this was very intuitive and it didn't seem related to money at all, but it was like we intuitively just started kind of purging items we had once my daughter was about a year old and my void state was like 2 or so years long, but it was like about halfway through that we were just kind of like, let's just start getting rid of things. And like we even keepsakes, what we started doing was like, especially like letters from family and friends, we would take scans of those and created a digital library.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
then, yeah, and then got rid of most of those things. We kept a handful of handwritten notes, but it's like, how often do you look at that? But it was taking up all the space in our
Right,
closet.
right.
It's like we started to just kind of release things. And
Mm,
now looking back, and as soon as you said, I'm like, you know what? I was also just releasing old parts of me that were very sentimental things, but I was just releasing the old programs and old stories. So I wonder that might be something that's happening too, where you're just like, I'm becoming someone different. I don't need things. Like I'm gonna release
it's
all the things that are
so
still
fun.
tied to who I was.
Well, it's so funny because like one of the things I love doing is cooking. I love cooking and baking.
Mm.
My trunk is filled just bake and cook.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because it's like I haven't really taken much of it out, but
Hmm.
it I mean, I've also been moving every week and that's been a lot for my parasympathetic system, but like it just cracks me up. It's like, okay, what is important versus what do I need? And the things that are important right now, microphone, laptop, food, and some
Yeah.
clothes. And that's it. Because they don't need anything else because that's the illusion.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's when, and in saying that too, I often tell people, and this is so funny because this is something that it's not even an advanced thing to practice, especially with how I tell people about, how I teach money manifestation and things like that. But I'll often tell people when I preface this by saying this is more of an advanced concept because we're so conditioned against it. But when it comes to money or anything material wealth, things, right? It's like if you want more of it or to have it flow to you in a different way, it's often like stop trying to get it. Like and get more on the energy of I already have more than enough, right? Like you said, like I already have everything I need and everything else is the illusion. And it's so funny because I'm like, if you want more abundance, most quickly way you can have it, realize that you already have it. It might just look different and stop trying to get it because when you're in the energy of trying to get something,
Way.
then you're not having it. You're not in the energy of
Right.
having. You're in the
Right.
energy of chasing. And so instead it's like when you can think about like if you are so abundant that you can just let go of so much stuff
Mhm.
and then it's like what else can fill and realize that I'm so abundant I already have everything I need, then it's like anything else you could want can more easily show up because you're already in the state of having everything you need, right? And it's so simple, but it's so deceptively simple that people are like that can't be all there is. And I'm like, no, of course you take aligned actions, you do the next thing, it's like you follow
Right.
your inner guidance.
Right.
But yeah, it gets to be that simple. Like sometimes I'm like, just stop thinking about money for a little bit.
Right.
Like I tell my people because I have a lot of different ways to work for me, and a lot of them are low cost because I feel like this information should be accessible to, making more money shouldn't be just for people who already have money, right? So it's like a lot of them are free or low cost, but I have the ways to work with me at a very high level are much more of a high level pricing point and investment. And it's for a reason because the people that I want to do that deep work with are the people who aren't going to be stressed about the money, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, and so that doesn't mean that you have to have a ton of money in order to not be stressed about money, but it's so much easier when you already are in the energy of having it. right?
Right.
But if you
Oh,
can,
yeah.
this is the big secret, if you can get to the energy of already having wealth
Mhm.
without having the actual money, then the actual money shows up, right? Like that's the trick.
Right. No,
Yeah.
it's fascinating because it is that state of awareness. And, this goes into the ancestral trauma, the
Hmm.
past lifetime trauma, um, and to have the tools that we have now that we didn't even have like 15 years ago to help us release those things is it's just fabulous. The
Yes.
reason why I'm so interested in getting rid of stuff is because I had two dreams in one night. The first was me being on a bus and trying to get my stuff off, but I had to take all of my ancestor stuff off first.
Oh my gosh.
Got to my stuff, the bus had taken off.
Wow.
Interesting. And then the second one was I can't remember, but it was like a hoarding scarcity thing, but it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
It was about the ancestral connection because there's nothing in me. I don't hoard anything. Like I don't have
Hmm.
patience to hoard anything. So like I knew it was ancestral, but it was there for me to heal. And that's what the ancestors were telling me. It's like, okay, you're the one that gets to do this because we couldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's funny. I often ask clients, and I've had to ask this of myself too. It's about, I work clearly with money blocks and things like that, and blocks around success and things like that. But it's with anything when we come up against some sort of block or something, I often will ask people a bunch of questions to try to get to the root of it. And if we're just not getting anywhere, eventually I'll kind of pause and look at them and go like, is this even your block, right? Is this even your block, or is this ancestral or past life? Like, what is this? Is this someone else's? And you, at that point, usually in the conversation, someone's eyes go wide and they're like, oh, it's not mine. Oh my gosh. And as soon as you said that, I realized like that's not my block. And I'm like, yeah, whose is it? And then, we can do the past life healing, the ancestral healing, whatever, but needs to happen. But so often it's someone else's that we're carrying and not even our own, but it feels like our own, especially because if we've had it our whole lives, then we've likely wound our identity around it. And so,
Yeah,
wow, but that's what a powerful dream, what a powerful metaphor too, to be like, yeah, if you want to get off the bus, you got to get everyone's stuff, not just your baggage, but all your ancestors. Like, oh my gosh, that's
yeah.
wow.
It was so
Yep.
intense. And I'm like, but I don't hoard. But I'm
Hmm.
thinking my dad hoarded, my mom hoards, my grandma hoards. Like, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like this is like such a deep ancestral wound that they were like looking for love out. This is my personal theory, so I'm not
Yeah.
protecting anyone else. When you hoard, it's because you're looking for love outside of yourself and you don't think you can find it within.
Yeah. That resonates. That's my my parents, especially my dad, had a lot of those tendencies. And when he passed, my husband and I cleaned out their entire three-car garage, which was just full of stuff. And for my father, I think, and I know very much for him that he was looking for that love outside himself from childhood, and like that feeling of that security of being loved. And for him, it was very much a let's save this in case we ever need this sort of thing. But there were so many things we found and we threw out when we were going through that. I was like, when would we have ever needed this, right?
Right,
But when you're
right.
in that space of that scarcity of love or support or safety, of course, then anything, who knows if you don't know where it could come from because you never experienced it coming from somewhere, of course, then you think it could come from anywhere or anything. And so then you save everything in case this is the thing, it's like yeah, wow. Yeah.
There's so many layers to it because
Hmm.
it's like it's the love, it's the knowing that you're taken care of.
Hmm.
I'm regularly blown away by how much I'm taken care of. It's just stunning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and to have the courage to face that stuff. I mean, it feels courageous because it's the unknown,
Hmm.
but then when we get to explore it, it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always what I tell people with the unknown. I'm like, I've gotten to a point, I think, because this is what I do for a living. It's what I live and breathe, right? Is this work because and the reason I teach it is because I love to live and breathe it myself. And this whole personal development, the spiritual connection with money and abundance in all forms, it's just like that to me is what I love diving into. And what I've found with that is that there's there's such a comfort now for me in the unknown, right? And whereas before the unknown scared the pants off me. Like I was so scared of like what's going to happen if I don't make enough money this month, or what's going to happen if people don't sign up, or how will I know if people do sign up for this program, or what's going to happen with it? Like
Right.
I was so afraid. And now looking back, 6 years later after starting my business, I'm like, I get excited for the unknown. Like, but it has taken so much courage, and I'm so proud of that courage that I've been able to summon that from within myself and been able to heal the things that were holding it back. But being able to look at, and I think this is one of my greatest strengths now is, and it took me, let's be clear, like at least 3 or 4 years of my business to get to this point. Like even when I was making multiple six figures, I was still so scared of what if next month I don't make enough? What if this launch fails? What if that happens? Like there was still those fears that I was working on healing. And finally, I didn't even need to work on healing the fear. I just had to instead get excited for the unknown. Because once I started looking at like all the best things in my business had happened from something that was unknown, and it had happened in a miraculous way, like stumbling onto human design that allowed me to quantum leap and 10
Right.
times my income in like a month and a half. Like that was an unknown. That was a thing that I got on a call with a coach that I didn't end up working with, but she mentioned it at the end. And I was like, what is human design? I was like, this is weird. And then I started looking into it. I was like, whoa, what is it? It's just like this weird happenstance thing that I wasn't looking for. And it was kind of unknown to me. And it was the same thing when I decided to take a reader training program and learn how to dive into human design. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make this investment back. And I was like, let's just see. And, like everything was let's just see what's beyond this. And so now, even now, when I do something new in my business or put something out and I'm like, what's gonna happen? What if people don't buy? What if I fail publicly? It's like I used to be so afraid, and now I'm like, ooh, well then something else really cool must be coming. Like what's gonna happen on the other side of that? Who am I gonna become? What opportunities are gonna be given to me? What am I being redirected to? Like everything is an exciting journey for me at this point. And I feel like it wasn't the making more money that allowed me to feel that way. It wasn't anything because I was making a lot more money. It still felt the fear. It was like when I finally
Right.
decided to be like, what if one day I lose it all? What if one day I go bankrupt, which was always my worst fear because my family experienced that when I was younger. It's like I had all these fears. And once I started stop being afraid of them and going, well, what if that didn't happen? What would be on the other side of it? What would that be opening up for me? It's like everything started happening for me, even the failures. And it's like now when I don't want to say that I need to fail to have any motivation. That's not the case, but it's more like when I'm comfortable and everything's very predictable, I'm bored now. And I love that. I love that I'm like, I don't want it to be predictable. It's like, yeah, I want things to, of course, financially, they get to be stable, they get to be
Yeah.
consistent. But in terms of like, what am I going to offer next? Where am I going to be in a year? I don't want to know exactly what my life is going to look like in a year. I want it to be like an adventure. I want it to blow my mind when I look back in a year and look back at where I am now and be like, I had no idea this was coming. This is amazing. And the only way we can do that, whether it's with manifesting more wealth, manifesting love, whatever it is we want, it's like you have to be so open to the unknown and the wild ride of it. And like you said, it takes so much courage to do that. Like I had this thought the other night of, it was very much like a channeled thought came through of, it took everything I am to become who I am now. And it's going to take everything I am now to become the next version of me. Right. Like,
That.
right. Like, but it does take everything. It takes
Yeah.
courage. It takes strength. It takes fear and being okay with fear. And, it takes so much and so much love for yourself. But it's like, when you kind of apply all of who you are to yourself, like everything opens up.
I love the way you phrase that because
Mhm.
we have this. I was looking at the Gene Keys a couple months ago. I had them a few years ago, and I just didn't have the space for it, so I looked again. And the first one is desire leading up to devotion.
Mhm.
And I'm listening to it. I'm like, I got the desire. I don't really have many desires, right? Like that's my son. And then I went, and then they said, oh yeah, and if there's a desire unfulfilled, and then my subconscious came up with all, like, of course it was the night, and I was like, I thought it was in the devotion stage. It was like, no, no, you're not yet. And it's okay because like I just didn't see the things. And so it's this constant exploration of finding out the limiting beliefs of who we think we are. I mean, and it's not like I used to I used to be a researcher on myself.
Mhm.
And one day my inner child said, will you stop?
Mhm.
You're turning someone who has a PhD who's been researching since she was 18 on a 5-year-old. Will you stop? I was
Yeah.
like, so sorry. I didn't know I was doing that. But like it is a like when you notice some aspect of yourself that you didn't see before, then it's an opportunity to like sit with it and be present and see if it's real.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And I found a lot of strength too, and like I resonate with that. Like there's a lot of times where my mind won't stop when I've identified a block or a limitation I have, like it won't stop picking apart. Like I need to solve it now. Like that's what it feels like. And of course, if you have like these lifelong blocks that you've learned your whole life or you've carried for generations, you're carrying that ancestral baggage. It's like it's not going to go away in 1 hour of deep contemplation. Like it's not most of the time. I've
Oh,
had that happen occasionally where I've had some spontaneous releases of things, but for the most part, most things are going to take some time, some attention, some love, some care. And it's been funny for me to have to watch that and also be like have this balance of I get to keep exploring myself and keep shedding things and deconditioning things, but I also get to just be and know I'm enough in just being exactly where I am now. And it's that kind of I almost talk about it as well with anything you want to change or create in your life energetically. It's like you have to be so good and okay with where you are right now, but you also get to be excited for more and for what's coming next and for whatever healing you need to do to get there or shifting you need to do. But there has to be a kind of acceptance of who you are and where you are right now
yeah.
in order to get to where you want to be. Even if where you are, who you are right now, objectively you're like this is not where I want to be forever, and I do not like that I'm in this living situation or I have this amount of money or I don't have this, or it's like it's okay to be like I don't prefer this, but when you
Mhm.
can be so good with what you do have and where you are and find that love in the moment, it's like again it's what I was talking about earlier. It's like you're in the energy of having
Mhm.
instead of the energy of not having, and then you can more easily have more of the things you want, right? And so it's like it's kind of that almost being able to hold both worlds of like the now and be
Yeah,
grateful for it, but also be excited for what's coming, right?
and that's just practice like everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm trying to be very, very present right now. I put the ball on the table so he can't get it. He's
Well,
like,
now you have to give them all the pets.
I know. It's all beautiful and divine. And, I just love the fact that, oh, hi, he's probably gonna jump off on me in a second. That, yes, I love you. I love you. Yeah.
Oh, hi, sweet boy. So
Romeo.
cute. Hi, Romeo.
Is that Taylor?
Oh my goodness.
Look
I'm
up.
such a sucker for animals, especially dogs. Like I can't. Oh my gosh.
My friend.
Hello.
He's like, I see the ball now. But, it's so beautiful that trying to come back, he's wagging while I'm talking to you. Um, it's so beautiful to learn how to love yourself enough to face yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's, you know, it's you have this knowing. Like I remember my little girl was pretty fantastic. And
Hmm.
I don't know what happened. I mean, not saying they're not fantastic, but there was a period where I forgot that.
Yeah.
And yet I always kind of knew it.
Hmm.
And to unwind all of those programs and beliefs and societal, educational, everything constraints that we walked into unknowingly requires a lot of self-love.
Yeah. It really does. It's I always say, and because I talk about everything right through the context of money, but clearly, I tell people also like what I teach, it can be applied to anything. It's not just money. It's just that money is where we get so many people get the most tangled because
Right.
there's so much conflicting messaging in our society. But I often say through the lens of money, but it applies to everything else, is that being willing to shift the way you look at money and your relationship with it and the way all of your hangups and blocks and baggages and wounds and stories, it's like having that ability to do that is such an act of self-love. Like it's such an act of love, and so many people come into my world because they want to heal their money blocks because they want to have more money, and that's valid. Money is a necessity in our world. It is needed, and the more you have of it, the more freedom you have, the more power you have, the more influence you have, and the more agency you have over your own life. And so I want to give that to people, but more importantly, what people end up finding when they work with me and what I am so much more happy that they find beyond just more money is it's like I said, how human design helped me come home to myself. It's like that's what my work is intended to do with others. Is it's like we use money as almost a vehicle to come home to yourself, and then let's learn how to take that like inner power and translate it into outer abundance. Sure, that's so fun. Let's learn to do that. But in order to do that, it's like it's a path home to yourself first. Like you have to have so much love for yourself and be willing to look at your own BS, being willing to look at your own hangups, being also willing to look at the things that hurt or the fear of the uncomfortable or the unknown. It's like you have to be willing to look at all of those things. And it can feel like you're being put through the ringer when you do that sort of stuff. It's hard work, but it is such a gift to yourself and so much love to yourself because it's not just that you're healing your relationship with money so you can have more money. It's like you're healing your relationship with yourself so that you can see how, like you said, like how fantastic you are, and then leverage that knowing and that understanding and that deeper value of yourself to then call in more money or whatever else you want, right?
Right.
Yeah.
More patient dog. No, I agree because like I heard this morning because of this chemical response that my body's had is like, what can encourage you to be more gentle when you're not sick? Because I'm super
Hmm.
gentle with myself when I'm quote unquote sick or
Yeah.
blind. What can I do daily to show up with that degree of gentleness when I'm healthy?
Yeah.
And it was this deep of, oh, wow, I guess I don't do that every day, even though I think I do, because I'm really good with nutrition. I'm really good with using, well, what I'm wearing right now is a Healy frequency device. So I bring frequencies into my body every day. I walk, I'm really healthy, blah, 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 blah. That's great. What's the next step to that?
Yeah. There's always deeper levels we can go, right? And that's I tell this with people with when you're healing different things, sometimes you'll find the same story pop up that you have to continue to, you thought you healed it. And it's like, oh no, I just have to heal it. Now it's on a deeper level. Right now it's a deeper, and sometimes it's like your soul contract to learn that this lifetime. Sometimes it's just so deeply rooted in your subconscious, right? But it's like, I've had something similar with you where I've always been like an overachiever and I'll overwork. And this was again where human design helped me to see where I was burning out unnecessarily because I was working in a way that someone else is designed to, like generators and manifestation, not me, not a projector, right? I was like, oh, so it helped highlight that. But more so for me, I started realizing that that I always felt like rest and relaxation and almost like being gentle with myself was something I had to earn. And I would get to do it when my to-do list was done, or I'd get to do it when I had more money coming in, or when I hit that milestone. And until then, it's like, time is money, all that conditioning, right? And
Yeah,
so it's like I would be constantly burning myself out. And what I found was for me, I started to look at like, I was like, well, what if relaxation and rest and like being gentle with yourself wasn't a reward, but it was actually part of the equation? What if it was part of the equation of having more money in a way that feels good to you and opening up kind of that channel for more money to flow through? Like, what if it was part of it? Because I really believe like everything is all one, everything is all connected. So why
yeah,
would rest and relaxation and being kind to myself be separate from my success?
right.
Right. And it was like just this simple moment of like, oh, duh. And so I started doing what I call now my receiving mode practice, which is something I do. I have a low cost monthly membership, and it's we do a different challenge every month in there for manifesting wealth with different modalities.
I love
And
that.
the one challenge we've repeated multiple times in there by everyone's request is the receiving mode challenge, because it's like it challenges everyone's habits and mental structures around what it means to actually be working toward abundance. And so my receiving mode practice, and it's just like it's just simple. It's like most days, I don't do this every single day unless I'm doing the challenge, but most days I take 15 minutes at least, if not more, but at least 15 minutes to just sit and literally do nothing other than just appreciate where I am and receive the present moment, right? And that means also mentally, not
Mhm.
mentally working on my to-do list while I'm in the bath or sipping a cup of
Right,
tea. It's like, no, like mentally being present. It's almost kind of like a form of meditation. It's just mindfulness, but it's mindfulness of what am I receiving right now? Am I receiving the music that I'm playing? Am I receiving the air in my lungs? Am I receiving the sunlight through the window, like the warmth of my blanket? Like it's just like, what am I receiving right now? And every time I do that practice, I realize how, and this is something I say all the time, but that relaxation is productive and profitable. And it's like that's how I started to look at it. And that's not the reason we relax is to make more money, but it is part of the equation. And it's the part of, and that could go for health. It could go for, finding love. It's like relaxation or treating yourself kindly is that feminine energy, and that's part of the equation,
Yeah,
right? Of like receiving the goodness and all the sweetness that is right here, right now, and being so gentle with yourself, receiving your own gentleness.
right,
And I've just found when I do that, not only do I am I replenished and I have more potent energy to apply to my aligned actions, but I also get more downloads. I also just tend to receive more money when I'm in that state. Like payments come through from clients that I've been waiting for payments on that I sent the link 2 days ago. It's like it all just pops through, right? And it's just like again, you're just shifting your frequency, your energy, and you're getting in that receptive mode. But it's so interesting how we have these things that pop up, like you said, where we're like, you're like, I'm sick, I need to rest now. And it's like you have a reason to rest rather
right,
than just being
right,
like, what if rest is the gateway to everything else I want, right?
right.
Or and that goes for anything you're holding yourself from, of like whether it's rest or enjoyment or
I
like
think
whatever it is that you're depriving yourself of. It's like, well, what if that was actually the path to what I want and not the thing that I have to wait for an
right,
excuse to do,
right.
right? And
And
I think
I
that
didn't
that challenges
I didn't
people.
even notice I was doing it because I think I take care of myself. And when I heard that, it was like, oh, well, you do take care of yourself, but you get to do what you're doing now all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, so like 8 cups of tea a day?
Yeah.
Maybe not that, but like being present to and thanking, really just holding on to that tea and feeling it cover my
Yeah.
throat and just feel the energy of it and be present with that. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I can just do that. And
Yeah.
it's such a rejuvenating thing, or taking my shoes off and sitting in the grass and just enjoying that for like 10,
Yeah.
15. I like more than that, but like at least 10 to 15 minutes a day, because that deeper level of presence feels so nourishing.
Yeah.
We forget that that's the way we're supposed to be innately.
Yeah. Well, and isn't it interesting too how, and I talk about this again with the context of money or success, but it goes for anything. It's like whenever we've achieved whatever we're dreaming of achieving, like whether it's finding the dream relationship or finding, having more money or more success or whatever it is, don't we envision ourselves being more present when that happens? Like, don't we envision ourselves like being so present with all the things we've manifested, and yet we wait until that happens to give
Right,
ourselves permission to just be present and joyful
right.
now? And it's like again, that I call this wealth embodiment in terms of money, but it's just embodiment of what you desire. Is like if you think you're going to be present and joyful and so fulfilled when you have the thing you want, find ways to be joyful and present and fulfilled now, and then you're an energetic match for it. But you'll also think and act differently in ways that'll draw it to you faster and create that result in your life. And it's like it's the easiest ways. Like start embodying the habits and the thoughts and the feelings that you're going to have at that next level or that desired manifestation, and then you close the gap like energetically, and then everything else falls into place. And it's so funny how we always think I'll feel this way when it comes, but I always tell people too, if you somehow manage to manifest more money or whatever you want without embodying how you want to feel, then the money will come and you won't feel that way.
Right.
Because it's not that the money gives you the power to feel a certain way, it's that when you feel a certain way, you have the power to feel that way when the money
Oh yeah,
comes or whether it
yeah.
doesn't. And it's like, and it's just, I can't tell you the amount of times people will be like, I just had a windfall of money. Like I'll see people in my membership you're doing fantastic with manifesting the money, but they sometimes don't do this embodiment piece. And then they manifest all this money and they go, I thought I'd feel more secure now, but now I'm just worried that it's all going to go out and blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, this is where we got to go back to like, how can you
Ah,
feel safe now
ah,
so that when the money doesn't show up, you don't overthink and self sabotage it and have it go out? It's like, again, it's like it always comes back to like bringing who you want to be into the now, not necessarily what you want to have.
right.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and that's so important because embodiment is like you can intellectualize anything, and I know I
Yeah.
have.
Same.
um, but like to actually really feel that depth of awareness, and just it's so cool when like it's not anything tangible per se, but it's like this deep inner
Mhm.
knowing that you've shifted.
Yeah.
And then you just show up in the world differently. Like one of the things that blows my mind, my small mind regularly, is the light that I carry.
Yeah.
I don't understand it at all. I really don't. But I watch how people respond. I feel the transmissions through me. And 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 it's just this knowing is I'm humbled by it because it's pretty powerful to see what comes through me. And yet I can't deny it,
Yeah.
because it's just innate. And when we have that depth of past awareness, but the actual like this is integrated into my beingness, that becomes so powerful and it takes effort.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it's funny because about a year ago, I realized that I am a channel and that I've been channeling my whole life, but it comes so easily that I just thought it was creative flow. I thought I was in the flow state. I thought I was just
Oh,
really imaginative. Because I was always a writer. I always loved writing. But I could tell when I was writing something that I didn't want to write, and like college essay or something for work, it felt very different than when I was sitting down and writing something I actually wanted to write. And it was almost like I would hear words and I just
yep,
thought that was just my creative voice speaking because that's what I had been taught to label it in my very logical upbringing.
right,
And then I realized about a year ago after I had started doing my readings on YouTube and really starting to intentionally master the craft of those that I started realizing I'm like, this is coming from somewhere else. Like this isn't me.
or
And the interesting is that this whole year has been this crazy up level after up level after up level because I've continued to make space almost every day to sit with my guides, to sit with my inner self, my higher self, and to get to know not just, all the different gifts that are available to me and all the different entities I channel from and everything, but more so getting to know my own power and just like my highest self. And it's allowed me not only to see other people's highest potential, which I've always has always been something I can do, especially as a projector. I can see other people's highest potential, and so I can help them get there. But seeing my own potential has always been so hard for me
yeah,
and understanding that and understanding my own power. And I feel like it's over this last year that I've really spent that time getting to know my highest potential and seeing
yeah,
all of that. And the more I've seen it in myself, the more I'm seeing even higher potentials of other people and even more of where they can go and what they can achieve and how amazing they are. And it's just like this whole other level of love for myself, of love for other people, of love for what I do and my artistry. It's like all of it has just expanded like tenfold over the last year. And of course, then the money and the opportunities have done so with it because it's just like all of it's just a byproduct of me
right,
understanding my own power. But like you said, it's like to hold that and to also like make space for it is huge. And the times where I got into like a busy season with my business or something, and then I've slipped up and not done my practices with connecting with my power and making space to be present with it. I've definitely felt the disconnect from it. And then everything starts to feel hard. And I start to feel like, why is this not working? And then I go, oh, yeah, you're not acting from your power. You're not making space to hold it. Right. And so it's like it does take some discipline. I don't know if I love the word discipline, but it takes some willingness, right, to create that space for yourself.
I like practice.
Yeah. Yeah, some practice is a good word for it. Yeah.
Like this discipline just feels it's an old energy.
It feels like an energy of like, I don't want to do this, but I have to. And that's not what this is at all, right? It's like this is
Right,
like I'm excited to do this, but sometimes I forget
right.
how important it is, right? Or how
Oh yeah.
it feels so good, right? So
Oh yeah. And I love that you mentioned that about the writing too, because I on and off, and I think this is just for me. I've been writing a novel since 2014. And it comes in spurts. I have the
Mhm.
dialogue. I don't even have because I can see the thing, but I'm not really good at like bringing that into form. But every time I write, I feel a shift in my consciousness. And
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with me. I'm literally like typing and I've actually channeled articles before. And I just hear dictate and I just start talking and I'm like, I don't even know what this is, but it's okay. It's all
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
It's
Yeah. So it's again the unknown and seeing what'll come through from it, right?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just fabulous.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm feeling my sinuses are starting to kick in. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but I want to ask you the question: how do people
Uh-huh.
find you?
So you can find me at tayloreaton.com. That'll give you everything you need to find me, to find my Wealthy Woman Oracle deck and journal. You can also you can find me at Instagram, Taylor Eaton Coaching. You can also find me on YouTube. You can just search Taylor Eaton, or you can go to youtube.com/at Taylor Eaton. But those are all the main places to find me. You can find tayloreaton.com/work with me has my membership for my low cost monthly membership. I mentioned the Wealth Vibe, and then also has the ways to work with me with group and private mentorship and just all the different things. So those are the places you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for being on the planet at this time in consciousness, and for who you are.
Thank you, and likewise to you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, my dear.
Yes.